Have you ever felt a strange presence before? From paranormal activity and ghost sightings to people attacks in broad daylight, sometimes hidden forces are caught in the act. Believe it or not, these terrifying videos are real. So in this video, we are going to show you 5 creepy ghost sightings caught on tape. The video is going to be amazing, so make sure you stick to the end. Ghost Jail. A YouTuber named Jumped Up Kitten and his friends are exploring an old county jail. They take a video camera with them so that they can make a parody of the Ghost Hunters television series. Little did the small group know that on this night they would accidentally capture actual evidence of real ghosts. Jumped Up Kid and wanders around the property with a camera close to his face while narrating. He passes by an ordinary-looking Jelsa window and doesn't think much of it at the time. When he goes back to review the footage later, he makes a startling discovery in the window. It looks like his parody show has turned out to be the real thing. From the other side of the glass, the colorless reflection of a man's face stares at them. You can clearly see the outline of the ghost's brown nose and empties. His head is cocked to the right, almost as if he is sizing up a newcomer. His mouth appears to be a thin, expressionless line. If anything, that ghost has incredible timing right when Jumped Up Kitten says that he is looking for evidence of ghosts when just happens to show up in the window. It's almost as if the ghost was trying to make his presence known. Perhaps it was even trying to get a hold of someone who could free up from his miserable cell. The church disturbance. Steve and Shaker wandering around the woods one summer night with a single goal in mind. They want to explore an abandoned local chapel that's rumored to be haunted. As they approach, they see that someone has written prayers and warnings all over the outside wall. The two friends instantly get a bad feeling about this adventure, but they swallow their fear and decide to press on the rickety main door's locks, so they sneak around back already. They don't want to be here much longer. They had explored an old clock tower earlier in the day and were greatly disappointed by a lack of paranormal activity. But they could tell this church is way different. The place looked and felt quite haunted. They go up some wooden steps and enter through the back door. They shine their flashlights deep into the church's main assembly. There's rows and rows of wooden pews ahead of them. They pass by a podium and notice a piano, then they head deeper inside. Now they find themselves inside of a small maintenance closet. They close the door behind them because they don't want anyone sneaking up on them. It feels like anyone could be watching them right now. They see a ladder to the left. Steve is about to climb it until Jake jokes that a body is going to fall down on him. If he does so, he decides not to. That's when the piano starts to play from outside. Send a weapon. And it's a soft and haunting piano melody that fills the church. Steve and Jake shut off their flashlights and keep recording. They debate whether or not they should go outside or stay here where it's semi-safe. They realize that they can spend the entire night trapped in the broom closet, a haunted church. So they turn their flashlights back on to see who is playing. Sitting at the piano at the far end of the room as a black hunched-over phantom. They scream and shut the door. Jake cries for a bit. Then they run away through the back exit.
Is that door open? Is that door open?
The music stops as soon as they leave the church. They were hoping that the music stopped because it was over. But in reality, it was because the ghost had gotten up from the piano to chase them. They run a good distance before pausing to look back into the dark scenery. It seems like they'd gotten away, but then the ghost finds them, and they run away screaming. The camera cuts off as they fall back deeper into the woods. At least one of them survived and uploaded this video onto YouTube, where it's remained for the past 10 years. The teleporter. 2 girls are alone in their house when one of them sees something in the doorway. Pause the video and you can see it's clearly the upper half of a young girl who is dressed in old-fashioned clothes from another time period. She is floating in midair as she curiously peeks in on the 2 children to see what they are doing. One of the girls still doesn't see the ghost. She shouts at something that's on television and accidentally startles the ghost away. The girl with a camera follows the ghost as it retreats. The ghost instantly teleports and now stares at them from the top of the steps. The scared girls run out of the house screaming. They stopped only for a second to turn around from the street. They can see the ghost girl walking across the left window on the top floor. It vanishes and then suddenly appears on the bottom floor in fest. Then a second, they scream even louder and take off again. Stay out of the attic. Back in 2008, a man started to notice some strange activities around his house. He would often come home from work to find his dogs cowering under the bed, too afraid to come out. One of his dogs would only come out from under the bed for a brief 10 seconds at most, before going straight back into hiding. Something was intimidating these large dogs badly. The owner starts to hear banging noises coming from all over for his house. He begins to look around, eventually traces the noise to his attic, and goes upstairs with a camera for a closer look. Everything is completely trashed, boxes are overturned, and clothing is scattered everywhere. Something has violently flung all of his personal possessions all around. As soon as he goes back downstairs, he hears another huge bang and runs right back up the steps. He puts the camera down and searches the empty attic for clues, and nearby metal bucket falls over, and he runs out of the room before he gets hurt. Another object hits the ground on its own, and the camera moves to the right on its own. The homeowner was too scared to look at the footage. He waited a week before going back upstairs to get his camera. By now, he is understandably quite paranoid. He begins recording everything he does in this home, and it isn't long before he has more paranormal evidence. One day his radio turns to static and a spirit or brushes out the window later. Someone violently jiggles the doorknob to the door that leads to the attic. The door opens and shuts by itself. The radio goes back to normal. Soon after, things look to be going back to normal for a second, but then a paper towel rolls, suddenly flies up from the table to the couch, and the radio starts making more sounds again. The video recording starts to get fuzzy too, as if a ghost is causing electrical disturbances. By passing by, both of his dogs begin to look in the same spot as if they are following something, whatever it was. The man was never able to physically catch it on film. He was only able to record its strange and oftentimes violent behaviors. Before we get to the ghost stadium. Ghosts don't have to wait until nighttime before they can begin to haunt, as this Brazilian soccer footage shows the crowd is happily cheering on their favorite team when suddenly a shadow ghost starts sprinting through all of them. Look closely, and you'll notice how nobody tries to move out of the way, even though a person is clearly running full speed at them. Not a single person tries to pull their legs in or even bothers to look up. They're so concentrated on a game that they do not see, feel, or hear the ghost as it runs directly through the Hatfield Stadium in a straight line. Ghoul School. This footage comes from somewhere in the Middle East. A group of teenagers are curiously exploring an old school. They go up a flight of steps and pause when they hear a dog whining on the other side of the door. They all run down the steps and gather at the bottom. They're afraid of being attacked by a group of stray dogs now, but they decide to press on and explore the lower areas. The group finds bravery in their numbers and begins to joke and laugh again as they make their way down a long hallway. They open a door and find graffiti on the wall. Other people had been here before them. Maybe this place isn't so bad. After all, the teens grow a little more nervous as they continue to poke around. Their laughing lessons starting to go silent. Something just isn't right about this section of the building. A YouTuber named Zobayan Jaguar translated their comments. He says at this point, one of the teens say that their phone shut itself off even though it was fully charged only a moment ago. Another person was able to keep recording, though they probably now wish they hadn't. They enter one classroom in particular and get a dreadful feeling. Suddenly, a figure actually appears out of thin air and walks towards them. That ghost is missing his head. But there's somehow no blood. Loud chanting begins as soon as the ghost walks towards them. But this may be prayers from a nearby mosque. Amazingly, the group all appears to have missed the ghost, which explains why they calmly continue to keep exploring. They wouldn't see the apparition until much later. But when they did, they would never forget what was heading straight towards them in that room.